Morning. Another day, another real world test. Today, we're doing it on the DJI Mini 3 Pro, the new under 250 gram drone with more pro-like features, hence the name. And I'm running a little late for a train because we're gonna head upstate to see what this guy can do. But first things first.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you around.
You too, have a good one. Something about just lovely, genuine interactions with other people. Even if they're small, so nice.
Coffee, check. Also, we just beat the train.
And we just left Moynihan Train Hall at Penn Station. If you've watched my videos before, we've been there before. It's a relatively new extension to the very outdated Pennsylvania station here in New York City. And honestly, compared to the trash that is Penn Station, it's actually very nice. Now this time I was surprised to see though that they opened up the long-awaited food hall with a new nice bar and seating area and a bunch more food options and vendors. And more importantly for me today, it means that I could get coffee from a place that wasn't just Starbucks. Now I've said it before, Starbucks is fine, but as a last resort, there's just such good coffee in this city. But we are heading out of the city right now on this train upstate to a place I've read about but never really been to, and it just seemed like a good place to test out the drone. Speaking of, let's chat about the DJI Mini 3 Pro physical aspects and how it compares to the DJI Mini 2. So, firstly, when folded, it is a bit larger than the Mini 2, but not enough that it really matters, honestly. It is still similar in volume and tiny enough to be just as portable. You will notice, though, that the Mini 3 Pro looks pretty different, and that's in part due to the large sensors all over it, and these large ones on the front that give it like a frog-like vibe to me. But those sensors are a feature from some of DJI's higher-end drones, and the idea here is that they can either have the drone stop or even dodge obstacles in front, below, and behind the drone when flying. Something that's super handy if you're flying through trees or other more complex environments. Thank you. Look, after a very long wait for a lift because I forgot we're not in the city anymore. Got one. A little nervous about the way back, but it's fine. Got one on the way here, and I think we're where we need to be. I think I can hear what we're trying to find. We made it. This is the new Croton Dam. It was completed in 1906, so you know, new is kind of a relative term here. The original old Croton Dam was built in 1842 and is actually now somewhere submerged in the water in the reservoir that was created by the new Croton Dam. The original reservoir that was here though was the first large masonry dam in the United States and was built to solve the issue of the new, faster growing New York City's need for water. And the new dam here was built after the city quickly outgrew the capacity that the old reservoir used to have, and this one is now much larger. Now in today's modern day and age, there's actually a lot of different reservoirs that all feed water into New York City, but some of the water still comes from here. Now along with the old and new reservoir, there was an aqueduct system that was constructed that originally used nothing but gravity to move water from the Croton River to Manhattan over 41 miles through pipes. Crazy. And there's a little park that is at the base here of the dam. It's just like a cool little spot to hang out. And the dam is very unique in the fact that it has a spillway that has a natural section where water just kind of cascades down. It kind of looks like a little waterfall. And then a man-made portion that just kind of shoots water out. And I don't know if it's just me, I love the sound of running water. It's like the best white noise ever. It's just calming to me. It's just a neat little spot 45 minutes outside of New York City that I just never been to. While we're here though, let's test out the DJI Mini 3 Pro. So firstly, we can shoot in 4K up to 60 frames per second compared to the 30 frames per second of the Mini 2, which is handy for action shots, but also for slowing that footage down to 30 or even 24 frames per second to get a slightly slow-mo vibe at half speed or so. Something to note though, if you shoot in 30 frames per second or lower, the image quality is better. it's more apparent in less light, which we'll check out when the sun goes down. You can also shoot in 120 frames per second in 1080p, but it's automatically slowed down to 30 FPS in camera, so you get 1/4 the speed slow motion. I prefer proper 120 FPS that I can adjust myself after the fact, but it is cool at least to have slow-mo mode on a drone at all. Just like the DJI Mini 2, the Mini 3 Pro has a 2x digital zoom button to get a bit closer of shots, but I will say that the 2x shots definitely look less sharp on the Mini 3 Pro than they do on the DJI Mini 2. Not sure what that's about. Now, one of the clever things this drone can do that I didn't really think I'd care that much about, but is now one of my favorite features, is that with the tap of a button, the drone will move the gimbal vertically to capture vertical videos and photos for social. It's just so much better for any form of social media short form content than cropping the horizontal image. And it's the same thing I do with my actual camera if I'm recording video or photo, knowing that it's gonna go live on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or TikTok. 4K sideways is just way sharper and frankly easier to frame instead of eyeballing where the crop on the sides will happen. Now, if you are a content creator, you might also like today's sponsor, and they might even help you pay for this new drone over time with the footage you get from it. This is WIRESTOCK. WIRESTOCK is quite simply the easiest way to sell your photos, vectors, and videos online. You can simply submit your content in seconds, and WIRESTOCK does all the annoying keywording and captioning for you automatically for free. They also automatically submit your content to all of the major marketplaces at once from one account that you can then use to track all of your earnings in a single dashboard. And you even get access to higher royalty rates than you would if you had your own individual account on those marketplaces, as well as increased discoverability too. Best part though, WIRESTOCK only takes a 15% commission with no other fees to use the service, so they only make money when you do. If you're looking to make extra money off your content through royalties, then check them out, again, for free, at the link below. Okay, let's get out of here, because it's starting to get real cold. So I can't go this way, but I can see a trail. Shortcut. Okay, so there's the dam, and then I'm on this trail, and this is where the pipe, the aqueduct, used to run this way all the way to New York City. Okay, I could have walked the whole trail here, but by then we would have run out of sunlight, so I took a car. I would love to do that one day though, like actually take the entire trail or a good portion of it, maybe on like a bike or an electric bike. That'd be fun. Okay, here we are at the Croton Landing Park. And it's located here along the Hudson River, which is what we just were riding the Amtrak train along to get here. It's this river and the Erie Canal connecting it to the Great Lakes and thereby a large interior of the US at the time that helped New York City and the Hudson Valley towns like the one we're in now grow as quickly as they did, with all of the trade going up and down it and out to the ocean. Also though, because of its opening to the ocean in New York City, it had a very brackish water around the city, which is like a mix of salt and fresh water, which is what prompted the building of the dam and the aqueduct system here in Croton on Hudson. It still blows my mind that it made it from here all the way to the city in pipes in the 1800s using just gravity. Okay, and while we're here, before we completely run out of daylight, let's talk a little bit more about this drone. So, while the DJI Mini 3 Pro is only slightly larger compared to the DJI Mini 2 when folded, once deployed, it's actually a bit larger. Also, the propellers are larger, which is good for maneuverability, but it also has the side effect I've noticed of making the drone quieter by quite a bit, it seems to me. Now, the new drone has a much improved gimbal system that, as mentioned, can allow it to shoot vertically in full resolution, but also has a lot more movement to it, which means that the gimbal can correct for wind better than the DJI Mini 2 does. This drooping is what happens when the wind is high and the gimbal struggles to keep the camera straight. It's 18 miles per hour here, by the way, right now, and despite a strong wind warning, it's doing well, considering its listed limit is 24 miles per hour or so. The camera the gimbal is holding here is also a much larger sensor than the DJI Mini 2. We have a 1 by 1.3 inch sensor now compared to the 1 by 2.3 inch sensor of the DJI Mini 2. So it's about 3/4 of an inch versus 0.45 or so. Now that combined with the 2.4 micron sized pixels that we get, which DJI actually bins the 48 megapixels together in sets of 4 to get a 12 megapixel image with these larger pixels, plus the faster f1.7 aperture compared to the f2.8 of the Mini 2, the light the Mini 3 Pro can capture is noticeably better than the Mini 2. we'll test this out more again as it gets darker. Now you can also shoot photos on both the drones and even take 48 megapixel stills from the new drone by unbinning the pixels with a button in the settings. Eagle-eyed viewers might also have noticed by now that I'm not using a phone to control the drone. The Mini 3 Pro can actually use a new optional controller that you can purchase for an extra $150. And personally, to not have to put my phone into the normal controller that it comes with, which is the same as the DJI Mini 2, is amazing to me. It saves my phone's battery, it's faster to deploy, it's shaped better and lighter than the other controller when you add the phone to it. I like it a lot. It's just nice to have a dedicated controller. Now, I do wish that the joysticks somehow folded down for storage or something compared to unscrewing them and sticking them in the back, because this feels like a recipe for losing them pretty easily. Now, speaking of optional extras, we have new extended batteries that you can purchase, at least here in the US, and these will run you $95 each compared to the $65 of the normal batteries. And they will give you up to 40 minutes of hover time in no wind compared to the 30 minutes of the same situation for the normal ones. Now, I noticed that the normal batteries actually have the ultralight 249-gram stamp on them, which, because of how the batteries go into the drone, you can see that from the outside, while the extended ones do not. Now, this simply is because the extended batteries weigh more in order to get the extra flight time, and it takes the drone over that precious 250-gram limit. Now, that limit, if you aren't familiar, is the limit to have to register your drone here in the US with the FAA, and just overall means you're allowed to fly it in more places, or at least get in less trouble if you do. Frankly, I like the idea of the extended batteries, and I might use them occasionally, but you don't need them, as you still do get a few more minutes of flight time over the DJI Mini 2, even with the standard ones. There are also Fly More combos that come with a multiple battery charger and a case, as well as extra propellers with both the extended and the standard batteries as options. Now, you can also switch the camera on the Mini 3 Pro to manual mode and then tap on the screen like you do a phone to choose what to focus on. And we even have focus peaking to highlight what's in focus, something that I appreciate on any video camera. Thanks to those new sensors, the DJI Mini 3 Pro can not only avoid obstacles while you're flying it, it can also highlight a subject and use active track to follow them in a few different modes. And honestly, it works pretty well. We have the quick shots we're used to seeing on most DJI drones, including the Mini 2 as well in here.
But we also now have master shots, which essentially shoots about 2 minutes worth of B-roll focused on a subject in various types of shots. So small circle, large circle, pan up on approach, fly away from, and others automatically.
Now, it's not something that I would use personally, as I would rather control the shots myself, but maybe somebody would use it. The other mode that we have here that isn't on the DJI Mini 2 is hyperlapse. Now, essentially, a hyperlapse is a moving time lapse, so speeding up footage in fast motion with the camera's own movement integrated as well. And because of the obstacle avoidance sensors, you can actually pre-program a flight path, for example, and have it just carry out that entire hyperlapse on its own. Okay, and as with getting here, there are no car services, basically. It's been sitting looking for a car for a very long time, and I'm gonna miss my train. So I'm gonna just start walking to the train station, which is about a 40-minute walk. Hello, dear friend. Don't mind me. I think I made it. Okay, Croton on the Hudson.
Okay, finally home. It's been a very long day. I think I hit like almost 20,000 steps today. But one last thing before we call it a night.
Now, neither drone is going to be good at night, but the larger sensor from the DJI Mini 3 Pro and faster aperture let in more light, and so it definitely does a better job than the Mini 2. Now, more useful for later in the day and just darker situations versus night maybe though. But with all the city lights here, it doesn't really look that bad to me. And honestly, I was just really curious what night shots would look like on this drone.
Okay, there we go. Now, I have to say that overall, I really like this drone. I think it has to be said though that it is not a sequel to the Mini 2. Maybe they'll make a Mini 3 without the Pro, and that would be more of a sequel to this. With the pretty sizable difference in price and all of the extra features that you get on this, it feels like it's meant for a different demographic. Now, I love my Mini 2, but this feels just more solid, dare I say more professional. It kind of feels more like a very compact and maybe even less expensive version of DJI's
higher end drones. Now for me, I feel like it is worth the difference in price if at least you're somebody who maybe makes content for a living. You're a content creator versus maybe a hobbyist. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always appreciate hearing from you guys. Also, let me know what you thought of this video and the format. Always appreciate that as well. I will leave a link below to the best price that I can find on both of these drones in the description below. Also, shout out again to our sponsor, WIRESTOCK. You can check them out at the link below as well. If you wouldn't mind, subscribe. Ding the bell so you get notified when I do new videos. Greatly appreciated. As always though, regardless, thanks for watching.